So your mic is muted though.
Yes, I'm aware. I want to stream. Okay. Um, let's do- let's make it private. Okay. Are you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you. So last week we were able to have a very good introduction to creating web servers. Okay, using the HTTP library or module on Node.js. So most frameworks actually built. Okay, you have a bad network. Maybe you can try exiting the call and rejoining again. No problem. So most libraries in Node.js actually built um, or most frameworks built on top of that HTTP um, module that we used last class, and even the implementation. So take for example Express.js. Express.js is a lightweight framework. Okay, there are so many other frameworks in Node.js, like you have the Nest.js, you have Nest, Nest, and we have Next, Next. So Nest.js, the one with S, is actually like an extension um, of Express.js. Okay, it is a more, will I say, stable um, framework. Okay, and it is usually used by teams that want to be able to build large scale applications. Anyway, that's not what we're here. We're here for Express.js. Express.js is a lightweight framework, okay, and in like under 5 minutes, you can set up a very basic Express app. Okay, it's not difficult to configure, and it's not even difficult to learn. I mean, a front-end developer that knows JavaScript or TypeScript already can basically just pick up a tutorial on Express.js and just start doing something with it. Okay. So Express.js actually uses something that is called middleware. Okay. Middleware is just um, the way it processes requests when it receives the request in the server, and then it passes it from something they call a middleware, is something that's called a middleware, and it passes it through that middleware chain from one middleware to the other, to the other, to the other. You understand? So the first middleware that receives that request um, is your router. Okay, there's no slide, but just bear with me. we are going to set one up now. So the first middleware is basically your router, which you configure. You understand? And this router is meant to um, process requests for each route. Like that last week where we created several routes. Okay, we created the routes for the root uh, website. I think we created for about, understand. I also configured one for that shows default for page. So after this router takes in, receives the request, it just passes it from one middleware to the other. So it gives you this kind of flexibility. Okay, it gives you this kind of flexibility um, to configure the way you want um, the Express app to handle each individual request. Okay, like let's say um, you, let's say you have a route now that you want to protect. Okay, so um, for example, the user profile, understand, and that user profile is going to be like under slash user, and you don't want someone that is not logged in to be able to visit that endpoint. You understand? But then you have other endpoints you want people to be able to see. Understand? People that are not logged into your application. That is people that are just visiting. You want visitors to be able to see those endpoints. So with middlewares, you can actually um, configure who visits what endpoint and who doesn't visit what endpoint. How each different endpoint handles certain requests. You understand? So you just kind of like place a what is it called? A blocker, you understand? So that when the request gets to a middleware, it doesn't put and proceed to the next. The certain criteria are not met. So okay, let me initialize our project route. Okay, so um, to be able to install Express.js, Express.js is a module, you understand? Just like a module that we need to install. So, and to be able to do that, we need to configure our project folder, you understand? And to do that, you run your npm init. This initializes your project directory, you understand? The npm, your JavaScript project directory. So they're asking us for a package name. So we'll just call this um, Express.js intro. Okay, okay. They said, sorry, name can only contain URL friendly characters. Okay, three. Express.js intro. Version one, no description, the entry point to the index.js. Testing. Okay, we now have our package.json file. So now we can now proceed to install our Express app. So running this command, npm install express is going to install the Express package into our project folder. Okay, so ls, you see that it has added two extra files and folders. This one is the node modules, and this is the package block, the JSON file. So this node modules is basically where all of those this folder now, this is a folder that contains all the dependencies the application needs to run. Okay, and each application or each project on your system needs to have this node module. You understand? This is just telling um, Node.js where to find the particular dependencies that are suitable for your project. Take for example now this Express.js I installed is 5.1.0, okay, and then working with this version of Express.js, they've automatically specified what version of Express.js that my it has been installed on my machine. And whenever you two on your own end wants to work on this same project, you just need this package.json file, and then you run the npm install command. Okay, this will basically install every single dependency that is found here, and then I think the other dev dependencies. You understand? So these are the packages that the project needs to run. Without them, and running npm install express.js actually installed Express into this our node modules folder. You understand? Where is it? Express. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now let's create a simple Express app. Okay. But first of all, let us import the Express module that we installed using the require statement, require Express. This automatically imports Express, understand, Express app into our projects. Okay. And for me, I like
Excuse
to
me, sir.
wrap my.
Excuse me,
I
sir.
can hear you.
Please, can we
I can hear you.
install all this on VS Code terminal?
VS Code terminal, yes, definitely. As long as you're able to run this command, okay.
Okay.
As long as you're able to
Okay.
run npm install, then definitely
Okay.
yes. So, and I like to wrap my Express app inside a main function, okay. So that this main function and everything I write in it would um, would execute my entire application. So this is how I like to write. I don't like to write things on the root here, like let's say I want to define a value, okay, then I want to write it here. You know, to creating an Express app, I like to wrap it inside a main function. Understand? Because even most programming languages usually require that main function. So it's just something I just like to do. So main, and you now proceed to um, you will now create an instance of this Express app. Okay. So calling this module that we imported this way, okay, is basically going to create an instance of the Express application, okay, and I named it app, okay. So with this app actually has a lot of um, methods, okay. It has a lot of methods and a lot of things that we need to configure our Express application, okay. So Can you guys see my screen? Okay, sorry, my network went out. Can you? So now I want to create my very first hello world. Okay, that's a simple route that returns hello world. Okay, so now let me execute the file. Nothing happened. Why? So as you can see here, we did not start this our Express app. Understand? So it just has it has a very similar implementation, just like the other HTTP um, server. Okay, the HTTP module server. So we have to start this server. We need to tell Express that okay, we want you to listen on this particular port 3000. Understand? Listen on this particular port 3000, and then after starting, I want you to call this callback function also.log server is running. Okay, and HTTP just a normal listing log message. Okay, running on okay. Let me save this in a variable. Okay, and this 3000 is saved in coins 3000. Okay, so now when I run this script, it is going to first of all create an instance of the Express app. And in this our application, there can only be one Express app. You understand? There can only be one Express app throughout this application, and this is like the main entry point for our application. Without this, we do not have an Express app. Then after that, we now went ahead to define a route handler, okay, for our root directory. So whenever someone visits our local host or our IP address slash, understand, they are going to get this response. And you can see here the second argument of this get function is a callback function. Understand? So this callback function is called a controller. Okay, this callback function is called a controller, and this controller is what gets called as soon as someone visits this endpoint. Understand? As soon as someone visits this endpoint, this controller is what gets called. You understand? So the work of this app now is to route requests from one endpoint to the other. You understand? So let us start our app. Node.js. Server is running on localhost plus 2000. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, we have a very simple. We have our response here. Data, hello world. Just the way we configured it here. Okay. So just the way we configured it here to return this response. Okay. So, but let's say we don't want it to return the JSON response. Don't want it to return the JSON. So we use response.send. Response.send. Let's say hello world. But now this time we are returning a regular string. Okay, returning a regular string. And the content type will change to application/JSON, which is this, to text/plain. Yes, so it's going to handle the configuration of the content header for us. So let's save this file and then we start our server. Okay. So we now see a text response here now. Hello world. So this is just how we create a very simple Express app. So you can see this is just all that is needed to start a very simple Express app. And then everything you need will just be you adding all sorts of middlewares. Understand? Middleware upon middleware upon middleware upon middleware. So this is just the Express application. Understand? So I mentioned something about about routes. Okay. So routing is basically how your application responds to um, users' requests. Okay. Routing is basically how your application responds to requests to different endpoints and request method. Okay. What does this even mean? Let me remove this white background. So what does this even mean? Routing is how your app responds to different endpoints and request methods. Okay. So basically, when we defined app.get method, when we call this app.get method, so basically we are just saying that we are trying to add a route handler. Okay. That's for basically a route, and this is the route, the first argument of this method here, this get. This get is the request method, you understand? And it can be post, it can be delete, it can be put, you understand? So these are the methods that are available to the app um, to this app object, you understand? So we say that we want to configure a route handler. So whenever someone visits this endpoint, the first parameter, understand? I want you to call this callback function. You understand? So to better illustrate this, we'll define different routes. Okay, and this one will be our home page. That is the reach. Welcome to the home page. Okay, the battery is already low, and it will be blackout anytime from now. And then app.get about, and this will be the handler. Okay, response.send. This is the about page. Okay, so basically, but you know that in a real application, you're not going to be sending just this. It's going to be something like a HTML response. Understand? You want your user to see HTML content into them, or it could be a JSON object, just like the very first app.json that we used before. Understand? Don't forget. Then for the last endpoint is going to be submit endpoint. So let's say we are trying to create a form API that users will use to register for our upcoming bootcamp after submitted. So as soon as we receive their request, their post request, you understand? As soon as we receive their post request to this slash submit endpoint, call this callback function. Okay. And this callback function takes in two arguments. The first one is the request object, and the second one is the response object. Remember, just like the, the last, the HTTP module, understand? So this request method has, this request object has all the information about the incoming requests, understand? Information like Information like the host, information like the request body, that is the body that the user sent. You understand, when filling their form. You understand? So the request body, you see the request header, and the request header can have things like authentication cookies. You understand? It has a lot of stores attached to it too. You understand? We can read all of those things from this request object. And if then when we want to now customize the response, you understand, we will now make use of this res, you understand, which is why when we wanted to um, send a response to the users, we used the response object and not the request object, you understand. So using this response object, we accessed the dot send method. Okay, so we called it, and as soon as you call um this method, you understand, as soon as you send response, you cannot call it twice. Let's say you have a second response. So let's say you have another method. This is like an external method that is defined in another file, you understand? And then that method has access to this response object. If that method should call um, this dot send or dot JSON after this very first call here, then there's going to be an error is going to be thrown, you understand? And to confirm that, we are going to visit this slash submit endpoint now to test it out. Okay, slash submit. So it's supposed to be what we call, oh my God, post. We cannot post by just visiting the endpoints from here. You understand? When you visit a link, you understand, from your web browser, let's say you just come here and you type the link, you understand? Basically, to what you are sending to the server is a GET request. This is a GET request. You understand? As soon as it hits your server is seeing it as a GET request and not a post. If you want to post data or use any of those other um, request methods like delete, put, patch, you need to make use of, let's say, like a library. You understand? You need to make use of a library, or if you are a terminal person just like me, you can use this call command, or you can also make use of postman. Understand? You can also make use of postman. With postman, you can make requests to different servers with much ease. Okay. Then let me move this here. Second response. This that's about where we have the get method. Okay. Save the file and restart our server. And now can now visit that and about, okay. Just leave. That's our addition has crashed just after getting the response. Then this is the about page. Okay. He sent this response, this very first response, after we went to this slash about route. He sent this first response. Then the second one, response.send. When he tried to send again, this is what he's telling you. So basically, it's just saying cannot set header after they have sent the client instance. So he's just telling you that you cannot send the header twice. You cannot send that response twice. You understand? So that's just what he's trying to tell you. Okay. Then we now have route parameters. So route parameters are basically a so they are basically the dynamic parts of your URL that can change. You understand? Um, Take for example now, this our Google Meet um this our Google Meet now. I don't know if you guys can see this link now. This link up here. Okay, this link up here. So if you look at this link now, you will see this code, this RQ, the one that you use to join the call, RQO dash KVFP. So this stuff now, you know that every single Google Meet call has this is usually in this format, you understand, where you have the HTTPS protocol, you now have their website and domain name, meet.google.com slash, and you now have this part of the URL. So you see this one now, it is the one that is dynamic, it can change. So for every single Google call, it changes, you understand? So as soon as you visit this, if I click enter now, so they will now route my request to this particular um what is it called? The meeting that has this code, you understand? So and usually they will usually have just one endpoint, you understand? Instead of having multiple endpoints. You know that this thing, this code now can be is usually generated when you start the meeting. So the very first day they built this Google Meet, they didn't know that this code might ever be generated. So there's no how they could have had coded it into the application. So that's also what I'm trying to say. So they didn't know that this code had been generated one day. So there's no way that they could have had coded it. So what they can only do is to just um, have something like an endpoint, okay, that is expecting different codes at this point in the URL. So as soon as you visit it, what it does extracts that code, okay, and then it now routes your request to a call, to that particular call that has this code. Do you understand? So that is the idea behind the route parameters. And to configure one, we are going to um, say app.get slash users. Let's say we build something like an admin API, you understand, and the admin, whenever they visit this endpoint and they want to see um, a particular user with an ID which will be provided at this point in the URL, you understand? So whatever ID that is provided here, we are going to now do like a database lookup for that particular user with that ID. You understand? So we will just do something like a very simple implementation. So let's say cons user. So this is our database. You understand? It's basically all the users in our database, and the first user has an ID of one, its name, um, John, understand? And the second user has an ID of two, and name is Jane. Okay, so you can go on and on and on, you understand? You will run out of numbers, but you're not going to be hard coding these things. These are going to be information or data gotten from your database. You understand? So we are going to respond with JSON response.json. Um, the user is with that particular ID. Okay. So this is going to be um, so we're going to extract this user ID from the from the parameter, you understand? Before we go to this step, let's not skip anything. So we define this variable. This can be anything. User ID. And to prove that, I will just understand this so many days. So user ID equal to request dot param dot user ID. But you see this one now, it has to be the same name as this name here. Okay. This request dot params object. This params object now is not a regular JSON. Understand? And maybe we'll console.log it. Console.log request dot params. Okay. So when we console.log it, we're going to see all the params in the request. Okay. Then they will now extract the one that we need, which is this user ID. Then we try to extract the user from the database. So using this user ID, let's copy the exact variable name. Understand? I hope I'm not confusing you guys. Okay, so I've restarted the server now. Let me visit that endpoint, that admin endpoint again. That admin endpoint. So is this yeah, so users slash one. Okay, it's not users. So you can see object null prototype. So why is it returning that? We tried to console.log this request around, let's see, let's just start it again. So if you're sending this request around equal to this, so we need to actually simplify this JSON here. JSON.stringify, you call this function, call this function, and you start the server now. Okay, let's revisit this endpoint again. So we can now see request param here down. You can now see request param is equal to this is the request param. So it's just one just since we only defined just one what is it called? Just one request param. You can actually define multiple request params here. So maybe the people like add another one, and let's say user ID, then let's say account ID, you understand? You can have so many param IDs, params that you want. So let's say the next could be okay, we start the server, and as soon as I visit this, we are going to see all of those params, even though okay. Okay, so we got an error, understand? Cannot get this. Express is telling us that there is no route handler for this endpoint we just visited here. Why is that so? Because this handler that we configured, which we thought was supposed to process this request has about is expecting about one, two, three different params after users, and we only passed one here. Do you understand? Do you understand? Before, before we only had it like this, only user ID. You understand? Just one param, and visiting this endpoint was was giving us what we wanted. Understand? It's going to work now. It's going to work now. Understand? So this is going us okay. So so now we want account ID. Come on. That's something that just is restart the server. Please restart the server. But in during production, during development, you are not going to be restarting the server the way I am doing, you understand, manually all the time that you're always restarting the server. So there's actually a local server that you can use for development that whenever you make changes to a file, it does once it does save the file like this, it's going to just restart your development server for you automatically. Understand? So now mm, I changed this one. Just to stringify this. JSON dot in the okay, it's not 7. Yeah, so this is now the request params. So you can see this, right? User ID, account ID, OTP 3. So um so we basically we just outputted the request params. So I explained that this param is just a JSON object. Understand? And these are the three values in that JSON. 1, 2, 3. And it captures these values from the URL. You understand? It does helps us just so instead of us having to like um handle it ourselves. So we just define the params this way and then retrieve them in our code from the params objects. Okay. Then the next would be query parameters. Okay. So query parameters helps us to filter requests. What do you mean by filter requests? Well, you can use as you can use as. So let's say um let me just comment this. Close this, So my PC has gone off. This is not a good way to end this. This call this evening. Are you guys still with me? I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. It's just one of our struggles, and there's nothing I can do right now. Yeah, I stay. More. Are you guys still with me? Was any of you coding along? Yeah, I can see you, Divine. Was any of you coding along? Or you will just be watching the recording after this class? Unmute yourself. How you? I want not speak. I want to hear from you.
Actually, I was just following up. My PC is slow too, so I'm just following up what you're doing on phone. Then I'll watch it. I'll watch the recording and practice it later.
All right. So there's just a lot of things you need to practice on your own to grasp them better. Because watching videos or listening to me yap might not just do it. You understand? You need to code, you need to break things, you need to debug, and it's usually the process of you debugging, you understand, is when you just gain that developer um, life spirit or skill, you understand. You have to see a lot of you have to face a lot of errors in your career for you to become good. The more errors you face, and the more errors you solve, you fix, just what is going to define how good you are. Understand? So we'll meet tomorrow again, same time, but hopefully we are going to cover um, from where we are going to continue from where we stopped today, okay? So that we're not going to miss out on anything. Then, but before then, I will drop the assignments in the group chat. Just something very simple that will have you practice whatever we did last week. Understand? So I think this will be the end of this class. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you tomorrow. Yes, the class is over. We can relate to call now.